Building Necron terrain continues for this year's Terrain Square Bridge competition. And now I have Necron lights.
Necrons!
Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. Right, today I'm going to update you with some more work that I've been doing on my Necron bridge. Before that though, if you would like to keep up to date with the wonders of Warhammer 40k, then please give me a sub and hit the bell button so you don't miss an upload. Okay, so week 3 of the 8 weeks that we've got to build our bridge for this year's Terrain Square Bridge competition. Now if you're new to my channel, maybe this is the first you've heard of this competition, I'll link you up to a video there of all the information on how you can enter. There's 5 weeks left, so still plenty of time to get a piece of terrain done and win some awesome prizes. Okay, so now it's time to go table down and have a look at the work that I've been doing on my bridge. Okay, so let's have a look at my bridge, and I'm really excited to show you the work that I've been doing. I've got loads to show you, so let's get cracking. Right, the first job for me was to glue these pillars onto the actual bridge itself. Now one of the pillars was different to the other two. It was slightly shorter and also had a different design. So to solve the shortness of it, I cut out a cardboard disc and first of all glued that to the actual foam pillar. That took about a day to dry. Once that was dried, I glued the 3 bridges to the pillars themselves, and again that took another day to dry. Now the main difference of these pillars, let me just zoom out a bit, is the actual design themselves. So this one has 2 flat sections, so I put both of those flat sections forward. This is the middle column, and then on these bigger ones here, on the outside ones, there's only 1 flat section there. So again, I just pushed those flat sections, both pointing forwards, on each one. I think I'm going to put the Necron symbols on the middle section only on those flat pieces, and they can be almost like 2 doors in the middle of the pillars. Okay, so obviously previously you've seen that I've got this locking system. So I've got this little strut coming out, and underneath I have a little section for that strut to go into. Okay, so that's the bridge upside down, and the reason why I've turned it upside down is because I want to show you this, which I have to say I am very excited about. Check that out. Got myself some green LED lights. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set them up how I think I might have them on the bridge and let you take a look. Okay, so this is the type of thing that I was thinking with the lights, is have them underneath to give this sort of green glowing effect. Now these lights here are 3 meters in length. I can't quite go to the end of the bridge, but that's okay because I need to wrap it around something. So if I went to the end, it'd be quite difficult to do it like a straight kink. Also, it sort of indicates that this isn't glowing because it's obviously broken. So this sort of works quite well. Now obviously the issue that I've got is this bridge comes apart in 3 pieces. So if I glue this onto the bridge with the tape, I have a slight issue if I want to collapse the bridge for storage. So I've been racking my brains. I was thinking I could make like a little tunnel section, maybe I can thread this through, but I think that's going to be a bit of a pain. So the best solution I think I've come up with is to use some little Velcro pads. So I've ordered some Velcro pads, but I was thinking if I Velcro these lights underneath, then that might solve my issue. I can easily just take them on and off when I wish. Now the end of the bridge, which is here, I do have a main socket over there, so it's quite handy. It's just a USB socket. So yeah, let me know what you think about using lights under the bridge. Do you like it or not? It would be pretty cool having the lights on top of the bridge, but I think it may just look too much like a runway rather than lights on a bridge, a little bit over the top. But I think having a nice sort of green glow coming from underneath the bridge might be quite a nice addition. Okay, so let's turn the bridge the other way and have a closer look at some of the other detailing. Okay, so that's the bridge itself put together. Now as you know, I'm actually building this bridge to go from corner to corner in a big diagonal. I'm going to put a section on the end with some rubble to indicate obviously this is broken. We'll talk about the other end a little bit later. But of course, being that it's going from corner to corner means that actually without this rubble section on, I can put it right the way down the middle of the table and it fits perfectly. So I can really use this bridge in different scenarios on the table, which is great. Anyway, okay, so back to these. So these are the little laser cut card sections that I said I was going to glue on, and I did. I used super glue to glue them on. Okay, so next was these side sections. Now you may recall originally I was going to have them going upwards, but I decided that it didn't look quite right. To be honest with you, I always thought they would look better angled backwards. They would match these sections. But of course that means cutting the foam board angled backwards. So I decided against it. However, when it was time to glue them on, I really didn't think they looked right going straight up, and I thought they'd be better angled back. So I decided to try and angle them backwards. Now, what I should have done is I should have beveled off the edge before I glued these strut things here onto place, because it was quite difficult to actually bevel them off. However, I did do it. Use a nice sharp knife. I managed to bevel them off and I glued those sections on there. I've tidied up this section just here using a little piece of cardboard, because obviously that had the foam side section. So I just cut some of those up, and that is what I've done regarding the sides. Now I do want to have a chat about the sides a little bit further, because I'm not 100% sure if I've finished with them. So one thing is, am I going to put something here in between these, or are we happy with these just plain basically? And the other issue that I'm thinking about is it thick enough? Do you think that I need something on the bottom here, like a strut, to make it look as if the bridge is thicker, you know, the actual metal bridge is thicker? So I did some brainstorming and I've come up with an idea, but I haven't glued it on yet because basically I want to get some feedback from you guys. So let me explain my idea. Okay, so first of all, I had to think about what I could put here, if anything. I had a look in my laser cut card box. I have a few options, something like this. It has that little cutout at the top. I figured it would be better with a cutout actually in the foam board. I think that would be really difficult to do. But one option, just stick something like that on there. Possibly the round one. I've got the little round Necron symbol. Or I could just stick on the actual Necron symbol, like so. So that's what I was thinking about, potentially just there. But then, as I said, I got thinking about whether I need to make this thicker. So I started off with a few ideas. One was just a piece of little foam, which can go there, maybe just to beef it up a little bit, just to make it a bit thicker. I then went on, I thought, well, how about I do quite a big piece? Maybe something like that could work. I even considered gluing it like so, or possibly underneath that strut there. So I could have it coming out like that. The problem I've got is gluing it on there because this is obviously angled, so it'd have to be underneath. And then the problem I've got is going underneath. Although I do really like that, is there's a big gap here. So that's not actually sitting on there, so it's sort of not quite right. I then went to this piece, which is basically another one of these side struts here. So I've got the cutout, and I was thinking maybe I could just cut that in there and glue it on. The trouble is that, again, where you're at an angle, the actual gluing point here isn't very good. I have to cut a bevel in there. That would be really difficult to do. So I thought, well, rather than actually using the foam board, how about I just cut out a piece of cardboard. This is only obviously a test piece, but I was thinking gluing a piece of cardboard like that all the way across the bridge. Now, I think it would have two advantages. A, it will make the bridge look a little bit thicker. Also, when I've got the lights underneath, it might hide the lights a little bit as well. So that's my conclusion, to put some cardboard strips along that bottom edge there. But I'd love to know what you think. What do you think of those ideas? Which one do you think I should go for? Or do you think I should just leave it as it is, the same thickness, and maybe just put on some Necron symbols? I'm not sure whether I need Necron symbols if I'm going to do this. Don't know that that will be necessary. So yeah, let me know what you think about that. Right, now we're going to move on to the teleporters. Okay, so let's have a chat about the teleportation devices. Now, if you haven't seen my previous video, the idea is I'm going to have 2 teleportation devices on the bridge, and then each opponent will have a transporter pad as such in their deployment zone, and they'll be able to teleport up onto the bridge. Or I could just have the ones on the ground, sort of underneath the teleportation device on the top for people to get up and down. So that was the concept behind it. Now I'm going to have a little pattern, which I showed in the previous video, underneath this, and I'm also going to put on these little stepping stones, these little metal pads, which will go around the disc to try and make it look embedded into the bridge. Now originally I was going to have these teleportation devices just here on the join, but I didn't glue these onto the join because obviously it comes apart, so I glued these just off of the join, which means that now the disc looks a little bit odd, which means I probably will have to move it over slightly, but then also have the problem in that obviously this is the join, so the pattern which I'm going to put underneath the bridge I'd then have to cut in half, make it half on one bridge, and I was thinking then you'll be able to see the line underneath. It probably just wouldn't look that great. So what I've done is I've decided to move these teleportation devices onto that side there and onto that side there. So the idea is now that the middle section won't have a teleportation device. When I had them in the middle area like that, it was almost like there should be another disc here, and not so much that side because of what I'm doing that side. But now with these moved over just here, I've got a better spread of the discs, I think. The only issue that I have is when I'm using it in 2 sections rather than 3 sections, it means that I'm going to have 2 teleportation devices together. So it'll look something like that, so I don't think it'll be a problem. It will look pretty cool, and it will bring a different dynamic to the game, where in that particular scenario, obviously both units can come right up next to each other, rapid fire range. In the other scenario where they're further apart, you can only shoot 24 inches. So it does bring a different dimension to the game, whether you're playing 3-piece bridge or a 2-piece bridge. Okay, now there's something else that I want to talk about, which I forgot to talk about in the previous video, and that was these. These were the little sprue sections from those. So let's have a chat about those. Okay, so what I was thinking was cutting out some grooves in here and putting some of these little pieces of sprue, almost like they're connectors to the 2 transporter pads, maybe have some on each side. Now it won't be obviously the whole section, I'll only be showing like little bits of this sprue. They'll be covered by these here, of course. So yeah, that's the other thing that I forgot to mention in the last video, but that was another idea that I had. Okay, so now I want to talk about the small teleportation devices which are going to be on the board. Okay, so these are the ones I'm going to have on the table. I've got 2 smaller ones, and I'm going to put these obviously underneath them just like on the big ones, and then the idea is to have one of these little toppers to hide the hole. Now obviously the ones on the bridge are going to have these little sections going around it, so I thought it would only be right to have exactly the same on these. So I made myself 2 foam board squares, and the idea is of course that these are going to go on here like so, with the topper which obviously will be painted up, and then I will use some of these little square sections. Obviously they're going to be shaped in the circles so that I can put them hard up against the actual circle, but these will be on here to give me the appearance that you've got the same sort of design as up on the bridge. Now I figured it'd be pretty good to add something around the outside rather than just having a sort of flat square. I had a look in my bits box. I came across these here. Now I've only got 5 in total. These are from a Monolith kit, but they will work quite well, I think. I've got this option of putting them, obviously they need to be glued, but something like that. Now I have an option of putting 2 on each, like this. And then I didn't really have much else in my bits box. The only things that I could find were these bits, and they're the ends of an immortal gun. But potentially I could put these in the corners of these pieces of terrain, like so. One there, one there, one there, one there, and that might just finish the pieces off. Now the options that I have are make two like that, exactly the same, or what I could do is make them slightly different and have one board with all four corner pieces on and the other board with the other four corner pieces on. So in other words, we've got two different pads like so. So those are my choices. Do you think I should make them exactly the same with two of these and two of these on each one? Or do you think I should have four of those on one and four of those on one? Let me know in the comments box below. Okay, so now I'm going to set up the bridge in a diagonal, take the camera off of the tripod and let you have a closer look at it. Okay, so that's the bridge there, corner to corner, and I'm going to talk about this section in a minute. I've got loads to show you on that too, but what I wanted to show you was the angle of those side sections. How they look now, I think, is a lot better than they were before. And you can see, even though this bridge is in three sections, it's actually pretty straight. Right, now I want to have a chat about the other end of the bridge, just there. Okay, so regarding this end, I haven't actually done much work to it apart from beveling the edge, ready for a side section to go on there. Now I've cut out that hole for that little tomb section to go in. This is the piece of terrain which I plan to have there, and the cutout you saw in the previous video is for a monolith to sit on, and then I was going to have some steps coming up to the monolith. Now one thing I forgot to say in the last video is although I could put a monolith on there, it doesn't have to be exclusively for a monolith. I could put other pieces of terrain on there, like this section here. Now I made this for my terrain circle competition a while back, so I could put that on there. That's got a door as well, so again, if I've got steps coming up to here, so it doesn't necessarily exclusively have to be for the monolith. I could put any piece of terrain on top of that section. Now one issue that I've got with this is where obviously that's just a hole, this isn't supported. I think I'd like it a little bit more secure. So what I'm going to do just at the bottom here is I'm going to put a piece of foam board coming down onto there, so it would just rest onto there, and that would just give it a little support on the end. Right, okay, so that's that end. Let's have a chat now about the other end of the bridge. Okay, so now we're on to this section of the bridge where I want to have some rubble. It was suggested, as I wasn't using this crystal on top of the bridge, that maybe I could use it in the pile of rubble just down here. I actually really like that idea, especially as I'm going to have some of these smaller crystals going around the base of the bridge. Now this particular system has this power pack. Although I could potentially change it for a smaller power pack, this was how it was given to me and I want to keep it this way. So I had to think about how I could bury these batteries in a piece of terrain somehow, and the conclusion was this. So I made a foam board piece, big piece of rubble basically, like a rubble base. I cut out a hole, glued some cardboard underneath, and the idea is that these sit into here. Now I want the piece of terrain to be quite playable, so I want the miniatures to be able to physically stand on the piece of terrain, but I also want it to look like rubble. So I'm going to do the same design as I do on some of my other pieces of terrain. I'm basically going to put some of these on there, some bits of foam board just cut up into bits, and the idea will be to have them raised up enough so that I can hide the base of those crystals, and also to raise up enough so that I can go over the batteries and make like a little door for the batteries. And I think that can work really well. However, I've got a few problems when it comes to painting this, because if I'm going to embed the crystals so that I can hide them with this foam board, it means I'm going to have to glue the crystals in, and that means that when it comes to spray varnishing black, I'm going to have a little issue because I don't want to spray the crystals, because obviously you won't be able to see the flashing light. Now I could go in and hand paint all of these sections, and it's all doable, but I'm thinking, have I got enough time to do this piece of terrain? So in actual fact what I've done is I've abandoned this piece of terrain. I am going to make it at some point, but not for the bridge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that aside. I already have all of my bits of rubble just there, and then I've made up another piece. So what I'm going to basically do is use this piece, just put a load of this rubble all on it, obviously spread around, and nice and flat so that people can stand on it. There'll be different sort of levels, you know, something like this. It's obviously just very rough. You get the drift, so I'll put that all over. So the idea is I'll just have that section just there, and that will just be a rubble section, just to indicate that obviously the bridge is broken and that is on the ground. I'll put some extra details on there. Some of these side struts will be on some of the pieces. I might potentially have little sections of these cardboard pieces I can put on there as well, just to make it look as if it is part of the bridge a little bit more. But that should be a lot easier because I can build that, I can spray it black, and then I can paint it a lot easier than the one with the crystal in. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this. If I get time to do the crystal one as well, I will. If not, then I can just say that that will be finished with that piece. So let me know what you think of the rubble section of the bridge just there. Any other thoughts, comments, feedback or advice on the rest of the bridge is always welcome. I look forward to reading your comments. Beam me up.